Welcome to the DingeCast. We are driven by a passion for discovery and the belief that history should be uncovered. Our mission is to reveal the hidden realities of the past to bring history into the light. Welcome to the DingeCast.
All right, it is another episode of the DingeCast. Today, the trifecta. Runway 25 Productions, Mr. Behind the Scenes, and myself. We're going to talk about connections, because connections are everything. And just think about gravity, how it connects everything to the world we live in. Well, there's a gravity inside of stories that connects you to your life. And we're going to get into a few of these areas today, and specifically some science fiction, some video game concepts, that kind of thing, because, you know, as you were living your life and growing up and going through the paces of a life that was involved with emerging technology and all kinds of interesting movies and God knows what cartoons and everything, this is part of what made you who you are. So today we have Brian from Runway 25 Productions and Mr. Behind the Scenes. You guys, I want you to jump right in.
All right, so mainly my channel so far discusses the lore behind fictional vehicles. I know that's not a super uncommon topic, but it's one I'm passionate about. I mostly cover Ace Combat and sometimes Sonic when the movies are relevant, because I have a lot of nostalgia for that. But mostly Ace Combat and Halo is where my big passions lie.
So I have a question for you. How much involvement or cooperation do video game creators like Halo, for example, have access to information from the emerging military-industrial complex? I know that's a weird question, but it would seem to me that some of the stuff that we see coming out of video games is very close to new technology that's coming out. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I actually don't, I'm not super knowledgeable on like the intricacies of that, but I can tell you that Ace Combat, for example, I'm going to harp on Ace Combat a lot in this because that's like one of my biggest areas. They definitely have strong connections because they get to photograph the aircraft inside and out. They, of course, have to pay the licensing fees to have the F-15, F-16, and F-22 in the games, of course. And every game has some, like, oddly enough, how do I put this? Like, it's weird how they've been able to predict the rise of certain technologies tied to military aviation almost perfectly. It
Mm-hmm.
is bizarre. Like the idea for in what you have here on screen, Ace Combat 7, one of the big weapons in the game that they showcase is what's called the tactical laser system, which is something that right around the time the game came out, I started to see Lockheed posting commercials for online, where it would be this little laser pod you would attach like a gun pod to a like something like an F-16, and it would be powered, I think, by the jet engines is how that works. And like, oh, that seems strange that you got that right. Like there's a lot of other instances of that. I'm sure more will come to mind as we talk, but
So I have a book that I bought many years ago. I'm going to say 25 years ago, and the title of it is "The History of the Future," all about what's his
well, I've
name?
heard of that.
Yeah, you know, the inventions that were being created in a fictional sense that became, you know, many of the inventions of the past became the inventions of, you know, different kinds of technology.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm not quite sure on the specifics, but one common story you hear passed around the internet a lot is how the design and the existence of flip phones back in the day were inspired by the communicator from Star Trek. I
Mm.
mean, there's a reason why they would flip open the same way. At least I've heard of that connection, and from my understanding, that's one really famous example of like fiction inspiring the future, which is
Mm-hmm.
just really cool to me. And you see,
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in the Mojave Desert in a place that's as close to Mos Eisley Spaceport as feasibly exists. And a lot of the engineers that work on the really advanced aircraft there were inspired by, science fiction stories of, 40, 50 years ago now.
You know, the idea though that when I was a kid, the future was a whole lot more interesting than the present. I mean, and I remember growing up
true.
in the
World of tomorrow.
Yeah, when I went to Disneyland when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, it was like, oh, this is what the world's going to look like, with all the Epcot Center and all this stuff.
Yeah. Based off of World's Fair.
I'll tell you, man, the future was where I wanted to be. But you know what's so weird is that at this point in my life, I haven't seen much of what they envisioned. At least, let me put it to you this way: so the jet packs. Well, we have jet packs now. They have actually over in Abu Dhabi. They have contests of jet suit wearing guys.
Yeah, I've seen those.
It's pretty cool stuff. And then you have the wingsuit guys that are flying.
They were talking about,
yeah. So to me, the future was always interesting. And I was expecting more from what they had discovered, at this point in my life.
Yeah, it is one of those things. I've thought about it, while I'm on my bike rides, and I think about, we are kind of in that future that even I dreamed about growing up in, the early 90s and early 2000s, where, we have AI now, we have self-driving cars. A lot of the stuff that was in those like 80s sci-fi movies, 90s sci-fi movies are reality now, but they just don't seem as magical as they did when they were presented to us all those years ago.
Don't you think that we have what I might term idea fatigue? Like we've seen all this stuff for so long, and we've been waiting for it to materialize at
Always
various
around
levels.
The corner, but never here.
Yeah, it just never arrives. There's that guy that went into the brink.
Yeah. Well, I'm lame, and I'd say
But,
I'm impressed by the technology, what we're doing right now, right? We're 3,000 miles apart, and we're hanging out, we're sharing media.
Oh, yeah.
I'll still never get over how much I have in my pocket at any given time. It's like, it's not just to look at videos on TikTok. It's any question that pops in my head. I can chat GPT or Gemini it now, and I'm learning on the go.
Exactly.
That it's just, I'm still impressed by that. I don't need,
Yeah, you know what's mind-boggling?
Still fine, but that's still cool to me.
Yeah, what's mind-boggling is that the iPhone is only like 12 or 13 years old now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I never really thought about it. That is true.
It's only been around. This kind of technology is like so new, but we're so already saturated with it. We're used to it. We're looking for the next thing. We're looking for what do they call it? Like virtual reality and 3D and holograms instead of looking at a screen. You're going to have a hologram in front of you pretty soon, I think.
I was actually at Best Buy, and one of their displays had a hologram display. It was this little pyramid that had the like Alienware logo.
Oh yeah,
as a hologram in it. It was cool. Just 3D print. I don't know. Like I guess they were doing that that same effect they use in Disneyland for the haunted house ride. I guess is how that worked. But it still looked really cool. It was this pretty good sized pyramid, like something that would take up your desk, with a big hologram in the middle. And
again, let's go back to Star Wars. When help me, Obi-Wan, help me. She's in front of the. That was the original Star Wars, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Yep. Episode 4. And it wasn't even called Episode 4 back then. It was just called The Star Wars.
Yeah.
And even then, what's weird is it has a very, deliberately analog feel to it with the scan lines and the warping and everything.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But it still somehow feels more high tech than even this here for some reason,
Yeah.
Like,
well, here's the problem.
Does it feel that way?
Yeah. No, and the problem with virtual reality, and I work with a company right now that's producing some amazing stuff. They actually have a gaming component of the company called Disciples of Gaming, but it's not. It's somewhat violent, but it's more Christian oriented gameplay, and guns down, gloves up. They have a virtual reality fighting simulator where people can go in and have, no
That's
matter
fun.
where
Well,
you
like
are, you
boxing
can
match.
fight somebody. And it's cool. But the problem is that the computing power required for real, very, very realistic virtual reality, I don't know if the average system is there yet. You know what I'm saying?
Oh
So,
yeah, no, by far not there yet. I mean,
mm,
I guess maybe not by far, but it's still another one of those things where it's just around the corner, but maybe we've made it halfway around that corner.
yeah.
So it's closer than it's ever been, and it's pretty good, but it's still not perfect yet.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
let's talk about the Matrix for a minute because again,
Oh
this
yeah,
is sci-fi is my thing. Okay, I love sci-fi. It's because it's a realm of possibility. And in the Matrix,
absolutely.
yeah, the Matrix story, you have people living in a virtual construct that is perfected, and to the point where it's perfected with flaws, so that people don't wake up from it because they don't feel that it's an artificial environment, because bad things happen to people in their construct. You know what I'm saying? And okay,
Yeah.
so if people die in the Matrix, let's say they die in the Matrix, they die in real life. So it's a really interesting concept, but I don't know if we're ever going to be that advanced that we have that total
Yeah, the total
immersion.
immersion. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think we could. That's really because that's more beyond my wheelhouse. But I mean, as I don't see us getting too far. Maybe Elon Musk would disagree with me, but I don't see us getting much farther than where we are with the screen on our face. I don't see how you can simulate touch too well without having like a bodysuit or something like you would see in Ready Player One, for
Right.
example. I think that's about as close as we're gonna get.
And they're
Yeah.
trying, but
Feasibly,
yeah, like you're right. Like it can't. How could it possibly feel? What are they like the haptic gloves? It's like it
Yep.
creates the sensation of weight and this and that. But I think the real thing is the augmented reality, like where it just merges. Like I want to have your
Pokemon Go.
glasses blend some elements into it, so you're. It's for me. It's all about
That's
merging
actually
machines, not like replacing. It's integrating it into your daily life. But who knows? I
that,
mean,
that's
I
actually
can
how
change.
the F-35 works. The helmet on the F-35
Oh,
fighter jet is an augmented reality helmet. So instead of having your traditional heads-up display, which is a screen that reflects it's like a little laser projected screen on the front of the plane, you basically just have all that information presented. Yeah,
that's
just like that.
crazy. Well, one
So
thing
it's
when
like a
you guys
video
were
game.
talking, you were talking about like the military, like do these game developers have access to that? The one thing that I've always thought about was the kids grow up playing Call of Duty, this and that nowadays, and in a sense, it's kind of like if you're gonna get into the military, it's like you're training how to use these modern tools. I mean, I used to live in Jersey, not too far from Fort Dix, and it's like people are fighting a war over the ocean from a base in New Jersey because you just control a drone from a computer.
Drone, yeah.
You know what I mean? And
I
it's
mean,
like kids can play
yeah.
these games and they're crazy at it. Like, good, give him the real controls because he's
That
gonna be a
is
crazy
actually
soldier. Like,
I have heard that
Well,
that
that's
is actually
Ender's
part
Game.
of the
That's the whole
Ender's
premise
yes.
behind Ender's Game.
One of the most popular sci-fi franchises there is. But yeah, that's actually, from my understanding, the DoD does have funding, or does fund, I should say, Call of Duty
that's what I was
as
just
part of a
looking at.
recruiting thing.
Yeah, and I couldn't
Wow.
figure. I knew
And
there was
esports team.
some
Yep.
overlap there, and yeah, like
Mm.
they compete in their like the esports events and all because they're trying to the army's trying to get in there. Like, hey, if you like this, we got a career for you later. So it's some
And I can
not
tell
what you
you,
were talking about, David, but it's still some parallel that they see the
Yeah.
tech, the interest in these games, and they're trying to say like we use this tech for other reasons, but you might be really
yeah,
good at it if you're
I
interested.
mean, I can tell you, I had a friend that joined the army specifically because he loved Call of Duty.
There you go.
And he ended up being the relay between like AWACS and ground forces, from my understanding,
Mm.
and he was not happy. He wanted to be on the front line.
Mm. Well, you see,
But
I
Call of
think
Duty really got to him.
the thing I think is going to change, which is already happening, by the way, and Mr. Behind the Scenes, you might already know about this, which is that the human brain, is actually evolving, and that
Oh yeah.
our brains are getting bigger.
Ooh, interesting.
Mm-hmm. And our brains are adapting to technology. So as technology starts to learn us with AI, artificial computing, and then it's integrated into our brains are going to adapt to that. And then the reality aspect of it is that we will then be able to process it from an advanced brain, as opposed to the current position of the human brain is that we still have to assimilate stuff. It takes us time. There's a learning curve. Yeah. And even if it's very quick, we still have to learn how to adapt to it. I think that's really going to be the radical change, and I think that's where Elon Musk is going. By the way, did you happen to see, speaking of Elon Musk, his dancing robot?
Let's see.
I don't think I saw the clip of the dancing robot, but I've seen the clips of the robots going absolutely nuts.
Well, Elon Musk's robot looks literally like it's a human being dancing. If it had skin on it, you would not know that it wasn't a guy like at a rap concert or something. It's there it is.
Yeah.
This thing is amazing.
Oh, yeah. Disney's looking at this going, oh, boy, this could be for one of our attractions.
Yeah.
I
saw this yesterday.
Money coming in from...
For me, there's like however fast you can think, however big you can think, it still has to funnel through your human body. And I'm like, the thing slowing me down is clicking my mouse and typing on my keyboard. If like it's all in here, but it takes time to get it out there. I want to get to the point where I can just lay down and it's like, let me just download that for you. That'll be the day.
Oh, just like in the Matrix. Yeah,
exactly.
Here's your karate program.
I know karate. Yeah.
Or your helicopter pilot program.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, that's sort of like the idea of Ready Player One. You can just log into essentially your Xbox or whatever and just be in whatever game you want to play.
Yeah.
I mean,
a great one of my movie, favorite by the way.
Oh, I love it. So underrated. I love it. I was sitting there in the theater going, ooh, I got that reference. I got that reference. Oh,
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right, well,
I don't think people were ready for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Brian, because I know that you know a lot of connections, right? So the way these shows and games are made, they're obviously modeling, not always, but they're a lot of times art imitates life. And I'm curious, what
the other way around a lot of the time.
Absolutely. I mean, it is a chicken or the egg kind of situation.
But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Continue.
No, you're all good. If you don't interrupt me, I'll just never stop talking. So help us break this down. Like, give me some examples, like where maybe it's a kid's show, or it's just sci-fi, it's just fantasy, but is there an underlying message that they're trying to get out, or even further, is it actually built upon a real life story and it's kind of adapted in a way into fantasy? I'd love to hear about that kind of stuff.
So that would be like Star Wars with like the transition of the Roman Republic to the Roman Empire. And also the hint, of course, at the whole World War II thing. I mean, they didn't call him Supreme Chancellor Palpatine for no reason. So, I mean, it makes that pill hard to swallow, or easier to swallow. I say that hard to swallow pill easier to swallow because, I mean, even now where everything is bad guy of World War II this, bad guy of World War II that, it kind of loses its meaning. But if you wrap it sometimes in the right kind of analogy, it makes it timeless. Like, I'm only just now starting to understand The Great Gatsby because not only have I grown up, but the world has changed. We didn't quite have that over-the-top like super decadence, I would say, even in 2015 that we probably have now with things like luxury beliefs and stuff. That wasn't really as much of a thing back then as it is now. And I was like, even in high school, I was like, that was like 2007. So even back then, it's like now as I age and as the world changes, oh, I get it. But it was too specific, I feel, to its time for the message to really be a warning. If that makes sense. But Star Wars, for example, is timeless. You can get the references, of course, but it can be applied to any situation. I'm a huge Star Wars lore nerd, and I'm always watching the news going, oh, this is just like that time.
I saw an amazing recorded session of George Lucas. I think it was probably 30 years ago,
Oh,
and
at least, probably.
his guys, his whole crew was sitting around. They were talking about, well, what is the Force, and why is the Force important? And it's on YouTube. You can find it, but they were. It was about a spirituality, an emerging spirituality, which, as we grew up, like I remember, I think the first Star Wars was around 1980, somewhere around there.
1977.
1977, yeah. I remember thinking, this seems very spiritual. It's in other words,
Yes.
it wasn't just a science fiction movie. There was a deeper, more powerful message because a lot of it was very cheesy. But you looked past the cheesiness of it
Oh, and that's part of
into
it.
yeah, totally.
And like I was watching it was one of the guys from podcast of the Lotus Eaters, I think it was Sargon of Akkad, and he was saying, you look at the dialogue for Star Wars, and like especially in the prequels, everyone craps on George Lucas for, oh, that was a really cheesy dialogue, the way Anakin and Padme talk to each other. But it's
No.
like, no, if you've ever been around just listen to yourself talk when you talk to your spouse or your girlfriend, whatever. And like, no, that's spot on. So he knew what he was doing. He was really good at that. You just, you don't necessarily see it at the time.
Well,
Yeah.
isn't it true that he struggled to get the money, scrape the money together to make the first Star Wars movie?
Yeah, it was a passion project, and I
Yeah.
was going to get to that when you were mentioning it has like soul to it and spirituality to it.
Yeah. Hmm.
That's one of the reasons why I just do not like the Disney movies is
Oh,
whatever cultural term, wokeness, whatever you want to label it.
yeah, totally.
I don't feel like that's necessarily the whole idea. I feel like to me, it's more the fact that there's actually an episode of SpongeBob that I quote all the time or reference all the time with this, where a knockoff of like TGI Fridays takes over the Krusty Krab and everything is just hyper corporate. You go
I
behind the
remember that
scenes
one.
and the burgers are just
Yeah.
basically gray cutouts,
Yeah.
lacking
Yeah.
any soul or anything. And I feel like that's what it's become,
Yeah.
where this
Totally.
missing ingredient is love and soul, and it's not that, yeah, that's the episode. And it's not there. It's just a corporate product. So whether you want to call it woke or whatever, I feel like the bigger issue is it's just an assembly line product.
Even beyond like the
Interesting.
social issues they put in there, it's like what the first Star Wars was, what the budget was about $10 million, which isn't a whole lot of money considering, and
Hmm.
they really
Yeah.
pulled up with like the miniature, the miniature set models to pull things off.
Yeah.
To
And that
get
is the
the
best way to do it.
laser guns down, they hit a hammer against like a metal wire. So it was really
Yep,
creative
I
and
know.
everything. I feel like a lot of that's lost when everything's just on a blue screen. So it's like
Yeah,
it's
see,
very
I mean, that's
soulless.
the thing. I love, like, I do CGI animation for my YouTube channel all the time, and I've been doing it since high school. I'm not super great, so I'm not going to toot my own horn and make myself seem better than I am. But, you know, I, even since then, I'm like, you'll never capture that same quality you get with like the physical stuff, the physical props, the physical sets. No matter how realistic my renders look, it's still not the same. And it just never will be. And I feel like that's because a computer, granted, one thing I don't think a lot of people saw coming with the AI revolution that is what I think we would call a black swan event. Yeah, I love that. Where it's obvious in hindsight, but not in not coming. But it's like, oh, that makes sense now. Is art is mostly math. Like good art, I mean, good musicians know this.
Yep.
That's how
Yeah,
they get
yeah.
get songs stuck in your head is it's mostly math. So it shouldn't really be a surprise that computers can do art to an extent, but it still lacks the soul. Like they can
Well,
make
I don't
it.
know. Some of these computer-generated females are pretty damn convincing. I can tell you right
They
now.
did. They just did a movie on her, right? There's a
Yeah.
movie on that, and then
Mm.
that what's that movie on the Turing test? Crap, I can't remember.
You talking about the Shroud of Turin?
Ex Machina.
No, the Ex Machina. Thank you. Yes.
Oh.
Oh, Ex Machina. Yeah.
It just totally escaped me.
Pretty interesting movie too.
Oh yeah, it was. I watched it in the theater with my dad, and I loved it.
Yeah.
I
A
thought it was fun.
cautionary tale of what happens when a robot becomes sentient.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the big question, right?
Yeah.
And that'll answer, I think, a lot of questions about ourselves is if a computer can be conscious or sentient, what does that say about us that are essentially meat bag computers?
Well, I'll tell you one thing about
Oh, yeah, the
computers.
singularity.
Yeah. I mean, this
Yeah,
this one
continue, sorry.
used to keep me up at night, but yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, like we can get to the point where if we can turn your whole DNA code into binary code and load everything that is you into a computer, you can kind of
Hmm.
exist as you in a computer, which means you never die. And it's like, oh my God, what does
Except for
that
one thing, a
actually
computer cannot have a soul.
See, I've thought
sure,
about that
yeah.
No,
I don't know,
can't
man.
do
I
it.
don't know.
No,
because
you
that
can't.
seems to be the
That
thing
would be like
where
Ghostbusters capturing what do you call apparitions in a containment system. You can't do it. It's because it is a spiritual substance. So, if anything within the physical or the scientific or the laws of nature, that's different than going outside into the supernatural. It's a totally different thing. Now, supernatural could potentially control a computer. A supernatural entity could. And there's a lot of discussion about this when the sentient part of it comes around. Does the supernatural end up being in charge of a robot? And recently, a robot in Japan, if I'm not mistaken, went completely nuts. Did you see that?
I
China.
saw that
Yeah,
video.
it was
Yeah.
China went
China.
absolutely
Did you see
freaking
this one
nuts.
though? Like,
Yeah.
because on the Soul Point, like, right, you can download everything. But this was yesterday. I guess a couple days ago.
Mm.
But
Wow.
Oh,
human bioluminescence that goes out when
hmm.
you die. Like,
Yes.
See, interesting because
like
I've heard where the idea is from our understanding, and it ties to the whole ship of Theseus paradox. But because even if you were to slowly
Yep.
replace your body piece by piece over time, it's a cut and paste, not a copy paste. So that
mm,
original you is dead, and then what you put in the computer is just a copy of you.
Yep.
So that would indicate that there is something like a soul, would it not? There's some missing component that would make it so it's not 100% of a transfer. Like,
yeah, that's a
Well,
great way to
I,
put it. It's because it's like it's basically you, but it is a copy, so something gets lost for sure. At least,
Yeah, totally. Well, I was watching something on photons just 2 days ago, and they're saying that with quantum entanglement, once a photon, there's a certain function that once it's performed, the photon ceases to exist. And so I don't think that you can actually translate a human essence such as a soul. I think the thing that quickens us, the things that actually gives us life. Because when you die, what leaves? I mean, it's like
yeah.
Frankenstein, right? They put electrodes on him and they brought him back to life. He didn't have what it was that he would have been had he not died. So I'm just saying, it's just
Full Metal
it's
Alchemist
very,
touches on very similar subjects too,
yeah.
or themes, I should say,
Mm.
because the it's sort of the reverse, but because of that, they explore it both ways. But one of the main characters has a soul but no body,
Mm.
and so through that, they explore what makes you human. Is it the soul? Is it the body? Is it both?
Well,
And yeah,
that poses a very interesting question, though, Brian, because I believe that the human container is only designed to last so long because there is a second. Isn't there a video game called Second Life?
yes,
Okay,
it's a like VR game,
yeah.
if I
But my
remember.
belief is that you are not meant to be here for extended periods of time. Now, Brian and I have talked about the Sumerian kings list. Supposedly, some of these kings lived, and ruled, 26,000 years? I don't know if that's even remotely
How is that? Yeah.
possible, but at the same time, what if there are different laws of physics applying to certain beings so that they are practically imperishable? Well, that's a different thing because they have to be designed that way. There has to be something different about the being that allows it to exist in a physical realm within the laws of nature. You know what I'm saying?
mhm.
But I don't think
No,
the average
it
person
makes
is
sense.
designed to be that way.
Have you heard of Carl Sagan popularized it, but I forget the guy who invented it. But Carl Sagan has a really famous segment on Flatland and how he doesn't know it, but it sounds like he's describing what we would know as ghosts, in my opinion, which is really kind of funny. Like you don't know it, but you're describing ghosts. But the idea is take our universe and make it completely flat. And I mean completely thinner than a piece of paper, no up or down or anything. And if a being or object tried to interact with our universe and they're
Yeah.
from the third dimension, we could only see a two-dimensional representation of that being.
Mm-hmm.
So in his case, he shows an apple and he illustrates it passing through this second dimension where you would only see like a silhouette or what would look like, you know how when you get like a brain scan, it goes layer by layer by layer by layer. That's kind of what
Yeah.
you would see, and it would be kind of this warping, wobbly thing as it, shows you this silhouette as it passes through,
Yeah.
because you can only see it in the context of your dimension. So, you know how that ties to what you're talking about,
Yeah.
where
Kevin
like,
Costner made a really interesting movie. I think it was called Dragonfly, if I'm not mistaken. And so he had this love interest. It was his wife or something, and then she died. But she loved dragonflies, and so every time this dragonfly would show up, he started to realize that it wasn't necessarily just the dragonfly, that there was something more of an essence attached to the dragonfly. And so, we're talking about whether or not, yeah, there it is. We're talking about whether or not we can attach an essence to something, but if that thing is a construct of man, and this goes into the question of, well, did God make man to create robots? Okay, maybe. I mean, yes.
oh, that's a thought. Actually, I haven't heard that pitch before. That's an interesting thought.
Right? Because robots do a whole lot of things that humans can't do. I mean,
This is true.
Take a look at the pyramids. They send robots down these little openings to see what's down at the end of the pyramid. So anyway, these are very esoteric thoughts that we have about it because, if a soul, and then let's posit the question. If a soul gets put into a mechanical device, does that become its ultimate torture?
That is also explored in Full Metal Alchemist because
Mm-hmm.
the main character, so how it works is the character that doesn't have the body, he's the little brother of the main character, and he is always just desperate to get back into his physical form. Like the bond that him and his brother share is they'll get their normal bodies back. Where the older brother just lost his arm and his leg, the younger brother lost everything except his existence, and he just hates being in this suit of armor. He can't sleep, he can't eat, he can't just do anything other than really exist. I mean, he can move around and interact with people, but he
Yeah.
can't do anything that really
So
makes
it's
him
nothing but a
person.
limitation device.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though he's like infinitely strong, can
Yeah.
run forever, it's still limiting. Yeah. He'll never know what, like he talks about, he can't remember what his brother smells like.
Oh, wow.
And that's
Yeah, see, these are things that I believe are imprinted not just on your brain, but on your being. In other
for
words,
sure.
and so now Mr. Behind the Scenes here has pulled up something really interesting, which is children that remember past lives.
Oh
You
yeah.
you got me thinking about that, and now I'm like,
Yes.
oh my God.
The one kid
Oh,
with the
gosh,
plane
that's a
crash.
fascinating thing.
Because like, how can a 3-year-old BS you, right? Like, and
No.
the one that I mean, I watched a bunch
Sure.
of these, but the one he's like, the
Sure.
kid's like, oh, I saw whatever, like Danny, whoever, and they're like, who's Danny? Is it your imaginary friend? And he starts describing planes, and then the parents check, like,
Aircraft. Yeah.
it was
Yep.
he remembered the life of some guy who died in a war, and like
Yeah.
down to the last detail, and it's like a 3 or however
That's
I'm
spooky.
saying 3, maybe it was 5, but like they're like they didn't have a documentary playing in the background one day, like he didn't pick this up subconsciously from exposure to it. It just came from somewhere.
That's right.
And I
That's
always
right.
wonder,
Didn't,
like, when you're a child, you haven't been influenced by the world yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
here's a
Didn't
perfect.
George Patton same thing? he believed that he was a general during a bunch of other like Roman conflicts, if I remember. It's one of
I
the
believe
big
that this is a
generals.
realm of possibility, and I'll tell you why. Remember the movie Ghost?
Of course.
Vaguely. Sorry.
Oh, I love that one,
Seriously,
man. Ghost is such a good. I watched it
it's a
as a kid and
great
it freaked me
movie,
out, but I loved it.
Sorry.
but what's illustrated in the movie Ghost is the phenomenon of the walk-in. See, certain beings, certain people are available for walk-in spirits.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. Took me a minute.
Right.
'Cause I know I heard that idea somewhere before.
And
That's where I
because
heard
when
that
I was
idea.
producing the Art Bell program, Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell,
Oh, coast to coast. Hey.
yeah, I was producer of that for 5 years. But
Dude.
when we had the guests on, they would here it is. They would talk about the walk-ins, and I believe that that's a real phenomenon. And listen, when a person is deceased, in other words, when they leave their body, they go to a realm wherever that may be. That realm may be a cellophane thin line between where you are and where that being exists. Okay, in a separate dimension. And if you're open and available, which some people are, that it gives the opportunity for that being to slip out of the realm that it's confined in, wherever it may be, and back into a human form. So, and then if it has the ability, it can influence, and children are innocent and, like you say, unblemished enough to be able to relate the things that it's being shared with it.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that isn't there a movie that's they take that concept? I mean, I've heard that concept used before, but I think was it the men who stare at goats use that concept? Or like
I
kids. I know there was a movie where they like the government was abducting kids and using them. I
Oh,
know I've
that
heard that plot
was real
before.
life. No.
No, I
Yeah.
know. Trust me, I know about those.
Well, that
But
was that was part of the premise, I believe, of the Netflix show. What's it called? With the four kids that were friends.
Stranger Things.
Stranger Things.
Yeah, yeah.
you know why? It was actually fun fact. I went to high school with the bully from the first season. I was
Nice. He's like the weightlifter dude with like the car or is no he's like the
no,
older guy.
he has the really freckly face. If you remember, I worked on his name is Chester Rushing. If you look him up.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't I remember that? I remember the what was it? Billy? Was that? Billy was
Oh
like the
yeah,
brother. I remember him. I don't remember season one. I guess it's been a while.
yeah. I was actually when I worked on the Crucible I was telling you guys about before we started recording. He was one of the actors, and I worked the behind the scenes as running crew
Nice.
and like did the fog machine and everything.
So apparently they're making a season 5 of Stranger Things. Now, I thought the last season 4 was awful.
I
Did
heard
that
that.
end with
Hard for me to watch.
Hopper in Russia or whatever? Was that how it ended?
Yeah,
They broke
something
through
like
the
that.
wall in like that basement, and then
Yeah.
everybody thought he died. Yeah, okay. Sorry,
Season
spoiler.
1 was phenomenal. Season 2 was good. Season 3 got worse, and season 4 was
Yeah.
That's usually how it goes
because you
with
can't
most
just
things.
if you have a formula that works, when you change that, it's like, remember they changed the formula of Coca-Cola to
I was
New
about
Coke.
to say that.
It was a blowout. Nobody wanted it. It was terrible.
They even I was just joking about making that reference with my wife. We were watching Futurama, and they have the Willy Wonka episode where they go to the Slurm factory, and then the big slug that produces all the Slurm says, "I'm gonna change the formula. We'll call it New Slurm, and then it'll make everyone angry, and then we'll sell Slurm Classic and bring everybody back."
Yeah, that's a perfect reference.
Like, oh my god, that's so great.
Because what HBO? I wish I had the meme up here. It's like HBO is like we're HBO Max now, or
Yeah, right.
now we're
Yeah,
Max. Now we're
Yeah.
HBO Max. I'm like, dude, no one cares what you call yourself. Just let
just
the app actually work when I try to watch something. That's literally all.
thank you.
You know? I'm a paying customer, but when your app doesn't work, I illegally watch your shows. So fix your app,
I mean,
HBO. Get it together. How much do you guys make?
I've never been smart enough to sail the high seas, but that is usually how that goes for most people. But if we want to get back on historical events tied to things, I got a couple here. And if I
Go
could,
for
would it
it.
be cool if I shared my screen at all or no?
Yeah, man, give it a try. Here, let me pop mine off, and then I'll let you take over here.
Yeah, let's see if that works. Let's see if that works. Uh, oh, screen two, boom.
Yeah,
Okay, there we
the
go.
thing about just kids being I forget the word you used, David, but yeah, that's gonna sit with me again now.
Mm.
So this is one of my favorite games of all time.
Which one
It's
is
Ace
this?
Combat 5.
Ace Combat
It
5,
came out,
okay.
I think it was like 2005, I think is when it came out, or earlier than that. I think it was like 2004. Um, Now tying things to real world events, you can see these continents here are completely fictional, except for Antarctica, and for some reason Greenland is still there. That always boggles my mind. I don't know why they photoshopped Greenland in, but but one of the major turning points in the story is based off of the Battle of Midway. And this is a game that takes place in 2010 instead of like the 1940s. And you're fighting I only show a little bit of it because I don't want to take up all of your time. But let's find a fighter jet real quick. And of course, tying your military, tying this to your, how much do they know about the military? Oh, well, they got
Mm.
this.
Wow.
So,
Just like a perfect replica.
yep.
Wow.
So, and then this was even just a concept at the time, and they
It
still
looks
never
like
did
what we got
anything with this.
now.
Yeah.
Looks
Yeah, the
like what
new
the Russians
F-47
have and
unit.
the Chinese.
Oh yeah, the because it's what they have is a mix actually of the FB-22 design from what I understand looking into it, it's a mix of the FB-22 and this,
Mm.
which was a failed Russian design from the Cold War. But let me get a plane actually going here. Do do
Mm.
do F-18. Do. And we'll just do that because it's a sea battle. It should be an F-18. But this battle, so this game basically the plot of the game is if the if essentially they're stand-in, they don't use real countries, obviously. If America and Russia go to war because Germany still has a stick up its butt,
Mm.
and then was still upset that we crushed them during the Second World War, essentially, is the plot to this. So it's essentially World War III, but based off of oops, got my controls here for a second, but based off of World War II. And so this battle is clearly inspired by the Battle of Midway, where you're firing or battling battleships that are trying to invade. Um, should actually show you this first. Sorry. Um, do. Let's do this really quick. This island should look familiar to you if you know anything about World War II, which I know you guys do. Give me this real quick. F5 again. Another. Um, but as these pseudo-Soviet forces are invading this island here, which is Sand Island, both in the game and in the real world from the Midway Atoll, where what happened is in the real world, we thought that the Japanese might be eavesdropping on us. And so we sent out this fake message that said this base by this code name was out of water. And we saw, we intercepted their transmissions, intercepting our transmissions.
Mm.
And it we heard a transmission that said, "Oh, look, this base is out of water." And we're like, "Aha! Okay, here's the plan. We'll tell, we'll leak a fake message again that'll tell the Japanese our whole fleet is at Midway, and then we'll come from behind."
Wow.
And so, in the game, essentially, that's what happens here: is the Soviet force attacks this island, but somehow you're able, against all odds, to destroy like their massive underwater aircraft carrier. And then that turns the battle or the course of the war in your favor. That's when up until let's see how many missions in the game, let's see, are on the defensive because it's actually quite a bit. One, two, three. Well, yes, it says about 8 missions, 9 missions. You're on the defensive, and then this battle should look really familiar to people. And I'll just skip through it really quick. Just grab a plane. Uh,
I was gonna
Again,
say
this
it
is just
reminds
free
me of
flight.
Operation Mincemeat in World War One. We like put the fake fake war
The
plans meant to be like easily decoded on a dead soldier, so that knowing the Germans would find
Oh,
it,
I forgot about, yeah, and they didn't
and they totally bought. I
they
think they
totally
totally
bought it
bought
because he
it.
washed up in Italy, didn't they? And then
Yep.
that caused a problem between Italy and Germany. But this mission here, you do a landing operation. I'm just in free flight right now, where it's clearly D-Day. You're invading the beach to storm. Instead of Germany, it's a pseudo Soviet Union. And this actually has really deep implications for the oops, my bad. The lore, or at least the story. It's where you find out that I cannot talk and chew bubblegum at the same time. Oh my God. It's where you find out that, see, during the previous mission, your president is all like, oh, I don't want a war. I'm going to do whatever I can to stop it. And then at the end of the mission, these weird dudes show up and say, oh, we got this. And then the mission after that, you're going full on invading the enemy homeland. So, in order to draw, and so that doesn't have any real, super real world parallels there. But in order to draw this big government conspiracy story, and I'll stop sharing my screen now. But in order to share, or this government conspiracy story, anti-war story, they drew on real history to have these big epic sci-fi battles. And I know there's kind of a roundabout way of getting there. I just wanted to show a couple of examples.
So my question that comes to mind when you're showing me that is, do you have an inside bead on all the drone activity that's going on the East Coast? And just a curious question.
Now, I was really perplexed about that. Some of that stuff didn't really. Some sightings, I was able to go, oh, that's probably nothing. Um, but I don't know. I've always been mostly an agnostic on most things, so I don't pretend to like know if I don't know. And so it's like, I don't know. We'll find out. I
I
mean,
like
I've
the
seen some
one.
UFO encounters myself, so I don't know.
There was one theory, and I don't know how credible this is, but that there was some like nuclear something or other
Mm.
that was missing,
Yeah.
and there was some reason to
That's
believe it
happened
was on the
before.
East Coast, and that those drones were actually Homeland Security or Department of Defense scanning using whatever kind of sensors to try to locate this. That they're frantically they put a network of drones up in the sky looking for it. And that's why, like, because why would you be able to fly an SUV-sized drone over a military base and the president's private residence?
Mm.
And they come out and just
Yeah,
say
they
everything's fine. I'm like, it had to have been you guys if you guys weren't. If you're saying you're not
Yeah.
worried about it and telling us to not pay attention, that again, I have no
you
idea
know
how
what?
credible that is, but it's
Actually, you know what?
very
I
interesting
was
theory.
weird. I just remembered this. So I was living in DC at the time. Just 15 mile. It was like you pull out of my driveway, you get on this small strip of road. We were like a corner house, and then you turn left, and then it is a straight shot to where the helicopter and the plane crashed. It just
Mm.
barely 15 miles down the road, and so that tells you how close to DC we were. And I'm just sitting in my backyard watching airplanes go by, as I like to do. I get really excited when I actually the squadron that brought down that flight would pass over my house all the time, and I get excited every time. And I as I'm sitting outside just watching airplanes go by, this you now for context, you cannot have drones in the DC area. You just can't have them. I talked to
Yeah,
the police there. They're really upset about it because they would be, it'd be helpful. And I'm sitting in my backyard and this drone with like a TV camera on it goes just buzzing right down the street, right over my house. Like, and it was loud. It was making this really loud whining noise. I'm like,
a
what
swarm
is
of
that
bees.
noise?
Yeah.
Yeah, like a swarm of bees, and then it passes right over my house like it was on a mission. Like it was like, I'm late for a very important date. And never heard anything one way or the other about that.
Mm.
So what the heck was that?
So I have family that's military, and they don't tell me a whole lot, but the one story I did get was if you're familiar with the Pine Barrens out in New Jersey, it's just like a nice stretch of woods. Like there's some houses out there like Tabernacle and wherever else, but like there's the nice stretch of just woods, and we like to go camping out there. People wander around out there. People bury bodies out there. But
Mm.
my friends
Oh,
had
I'm
some
sure.
story of like we were driving because there's like the like Carranza Road goes like I don't know 11, 12 miles back. It's like a dirt road. There's no lights, and they're driving, and all of a sudden these like giant bright lights come out, whatever, 40 feet in the air facing them, and it's flying towards them, and they're like, "Oh my God, they stopped the car!" And then the lights go away, and then later on, like it. So my family member was like, "Yeah, sometimes we like to mess with people out there." That was like a military helicopter or something, like flying
Mm.
I'm
quiet and all dark, and then they're like, "Pop the lights on," and just to mess with. I'm like, God, you have no idea the damage you do to these people's lives with that.
dude, that happened to me in Palmdale. I swear, I was putting it was like God, it had to be I don't know what time of year it was, and that would dictate when it got dark. But it was pretty late at night. I'll say probably like 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. And we had a pool at the time, and I was throwing in one of those like shock things where you just like shock the pool, and
Yeah,
it's full
yeah.
of like all these chemicals shaped like a fish. Um, I was throwing that in there, and this really silent helicopter flew right over me, shined the spotlight on me. I'm like, "Hey, so, like,
Yeah.
what are you doing?"
That's cruel. That's too funny though.
Like, "Hey, there's a shirtless 10-year-old in the backyard. Let's scare the shit out of him."
Well, the Jersey drone thing, right? Like the to a degree, I wouldn't say it caused like mass panic or mass hysteria. It wasn't at that level, but it created
Got people on edge.
because people became so curious, any drone that somebody saw, they're like, "Oh, I need to film that," and maybe that's one of them, right? And that's what kind of muddied the
Yeah.
waters of like how many of
See,
these
that's what I
are
can't
concerning and how
stand.
many are
Yeah.
just private personal drones.
I mean,
Um,
I keep my eye on a lot of flight trackers, mainly flight radar, but I surf around. Flight radar 24 is the big one. And I'll keep my eye around Palmdale, and you'll see drones out there all the time. And there was one that it's been flying around there for 20 years. I'm not joking. I used to go out to El Mirage Lake Bed, fire off model rockets, stuff like that, and every day I'd go out there, this Predator drone would be circling overhead all day, every day. So, forgot how I was going to tie that to what you just said.
yeah,
Sorry, my
and
brain drew
there's
a
there's
blank.
things like, not to get deeper on that, like we'll get back to it in a second, but there's certain things, right? Like we all want transparency. We want to know what the government's up to, and I understand there has to be some level of whatever we know. That means the enemy knows too, right? It's like they're like we can't
Yeah,
openly tell the American public. Everybody else is going to find out. But it does so that I'm okay with them having some secrets because I understand the national security,
yeah.
but it does leave open that big mysterious aspect of
Well,
like
it's
how
that
deep does it go?
overclassification, where things that don't really need to be kept secret are, and so it muddies the water,
Yeah.
where people can't. Because how am I like even the most skeptical person? How am I supposed to distinguish whether or not this matters if you're saying it all matters, even to stuff that is utterly irrelevant, like the menu at the Pentagon? You know,
Well, they have the
it,
ability to control your mind through focusing your attention because wherever your mind goes, your energy flows. They know how to control you. The mind has no firewall whatsoever, and the military
no,
understands
no,
that. And so, if the
you have
military
to build
needs
your
to
own firewall.
control you, they will. And if they have a perfect rationalization and justification for everything that they do, and they always say it's in your own best interest.
Oh, if you're interested in Nellis, and I have something on that, I'll tie it back to your mind
Yeah, I
control
mean,
thing here in a second.
yeah, I don't know how. Well,
I'm
you
just
can tell me about it. I don't know too much, but
so this is really fun. Actually, in this cabinet behind me, I have an autograph from a pilot, probably from Area 51, is my guess.
oh, cool.
Because if Coast to Coast, obviously, because you worked on it, I'm
Yep.
sure you know about the Janet Airlines flights.
Yep.
And so every so often, a Janet Airlines flight would come into Palmdale with the call sign, and you can even track them on radar. They'll pop in right after they get out of Rachel. They'll
Mm.
pop on the radar. Yep, with the red stripe on them. And you'll see sometimes they'll fly towards Nellis because that's the bus. You get on in order to get to Area 51, you get on a plane at Nellis and then or not at Nellis at the international airport in Vegas, I forget the name. Um and then you take that to Area 51 or you take it to Palmdale where they have a U2 waiting for you. And the little autograph I have is from a pilot says X-ray 00, which was his call sign and of course U2 pilot. And where do they come from? Like I said, so that's cool. I mean, just a little tie there.
Yeah. No, I mean, back in
I
the
have an
day, this
autograph.
is this is unrelated, but like into studying I like the CIA, and I was like, it's cool.
Oh yeah,
Somebody's job is to create the shell companies and the
I know.
records to help create that buffer so that when they do like the Al Qaeda prisoner transports to the airport in Scotland or wherever country, like we can't just announce that, you know.
No,
So somebody creates all these fake records and these shell companies that everything's registered to. I'm like, bro, I want to do that. That is a wild job.
it is so cool. I'm not gonna lie. Like that's how they actually built the SR-71 Blackbird. Is the CIA had to build or had to have shell companies in order to get the titanium that was only available in Russia.
Oh yeah.
They couldn't get it anywhere else. So they're like, we are not building American spy plane. No, we
Yeah.
are building anything else.
And that's what I'm saying. Like some of this stuff's shady, where you're like, like I don't have a good analogy, right? It's like some picture like some teenagers in high school like trying to go buy pot from somebody, and it's like, hey, what are you doing here? You're like, shut up, shut up, shut up. Like and they're like, I'm
No,
trying to buy this thing. Just don't. I don't, that's a horrible analogy, but but it's funny
no, but
because
I know what you
if they
mean. It's
did it
like,
through the right means, they tip everybody off, so they have to do it in this secretive way.
exactly. No, I know exactly. I mean, I think it's an okay analogy. I think that works.
Yeah, yeah.
But on the note of your mind control, and on video games, there's one of my favorite video games of all time is at least the original Bungie run of Halo. And I just noticed this actually while I was talking to Ryan as I was emailing him, it dawned on me that there's this, and I don't know if it's intended or not, but this subtext of different forms of mind control being sort of the backbone of the three main factions, at least in the original games, where in Halo you have this one faction called the Flood, which is basically the best way I can be God if God was an evil Cthulhu demon beast. Like it's all powerful, all knowing, and all evil. And its mind control is it's a parasite that gets into your body, turns you essentially into a zombie, and has like this magic hive mind that can control you anywhere in the universe at any time, whatever. But then you have this other faction, the Covenant, which is an extremist religious faction, which uses the promise of being the chosen ones and going on what's called the Great Journey to enlist species from all over the galaxy to do this other species bidding that's called the prophets.
Mm.
And like, oh, if you do what we say, you will be the chosen ones. You will be amongst the gods with us. And then you have the faction that you play as or play for with Master Chief and a few other Spartans in the spin-off games called the UNSC or United Nations Space Command, which is basically Team America World Police. I mean, the game came out in 2001,
Yeah.
so it's that overly patriotic America, yeah, military, right?
Yeah.
Not that
Yeah.
there's really anything, to me, that there's anything wrong with that. I'm from that era. I still
Yeah.
love the original Independence Day, but
Yeah.
and that is basically
Yeah.
the whole point of that movie. But their whole mind control thing is it's only really been more brought to light with sort of the later games, but uh the the propaganda. Sorry, my brain just totally blanked out there. The UNSC uses a lot of propaganda. They kidnap in order to make like the Spartans like Master Chief. They'll kidnap these children at about 6, 7 years old, and then do horrible Mangala type surgeries on them and brainwash them into just being mindless, obedient
Mm.
robots, essentially.
Mm.
I mean, they even make a joke about that in one of the animes. What are you, a giant robot? But and that's they keep trying to go at this plot, but they never go anywhere with it. They like start it in the game and like at the beginning of almost every game, is Master Chief more machine or man? And they never explore it after like the first bit of the
Well,
game.
this topic ties into the Heaven's Gate cult in the Cowboy Bebop series. You want to talk
Yes.
about that? Mm-hmm.
All right. So, I just watched a video on the Heaven's Gate thing that was actually really in depth, so it's going to take me a minute to load that stuff. But the idea was in Cowboy Bebop, it's one of my favorite episodes of all time because I actually do find the idea of like what we were talking about earlier, downloading your brain into like a giant Matryoshka brain, which
Mm.
if you have you heard of that?
Mm-mm.
I'm sure you would. Okay, so a Matryoshka brain is a theoretical answer to the Fermi paradox, where
Mm.
do all these aliens go? Well, it's possible that they create something like a Dyson sphere or Dyson swarm that is
Mm.
a giant sun-powered computer that they then download themselves into. And so I was like, oh, that idea just sounds fun. The idea of the Matrix just as a sci-fi concept sounds fun. I mean, I don't know in real life if that would be hell or not, but, but
Well, it'd be like a dream
um,
you can't wake up from. So I'm not sure that would be a
exactly.
great. Yeah.
It could go either way,
Yeah.
right? But I lost my train of thought. Where were we?
I mean,
Cowboy
before we get
Bebop.
back in there,
Oh,
just
Cowboy Bebop. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. But I was just gonna
So
like the whole mind control thing. What I think is interesting. It's like people are like, what is there this like big nefarious, like how are they doing it? Are they putting stuff in the water? I'm like, no. I like David says, it's like everything comes down to choice. If people can convince you there's only so many choices, that is mind control.
oh, that is
It's
definitely
like they just society, just the structure of how things are controls your mind to some extent. And it's like
oh for
I feel
sure.
like people hear
I
that
mean,
term and think it's something so much bigger, and it can mean both things. But I think at a certain level, um, there's a very
well,
foundational aspect of that there.
look at like why did McDonald's choose the colors red and yellow?
Yes,
Because they
makes you hungry.
specifically trigger hunger in your brain.
Mm.
And I remember learning about how those colors work subconsciously when I was in high school. And as I was walking through my high school, looking at the tile and the trim and the paint on the walls and stuff, it occurred to me that they use the exact same color scheme and like template that prisons do for the
Yeah.
same reasons
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
to
No, it's true.
subdue you, to
Yeah.
keep you
The
from.
color pale blue subdues you. It's designed to
Yep.
create obedience. Yeah.
Yeah.
And my school's colors were bright red, oddly enough.
Mm.
So, you know
So
what I
you were
mean? Like our
hungry
school
all the
colors.
time.
Yeah. So I mean, but they colored the inside of the school bright, that
Yeah.
pastel blue. And so it's like,
Ah.
oh, that's interesting. You know what I mean? Our school colors are red, but you're using, there might be a reason behind this. Why didn't you choose red as a, consistent thing? You know? Like, oh, because you want me to be subdued. And that, that was one of those things. I only really went to school for the social experience, but it is not a place for smart people, Morty.
No. No, it is not. So the mind scratch episode of Cowboy Bebop
Yeah, no,
you're
I'm
going to
sorry. We
get
keep
into.
getting off
Yeah.
topic. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Um, Sorry, I didn't mean to did you have anything to say there? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Me?
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
We are waiting for your insights
Oh,
here.
Yeah, you're
okay,
the
sorry.
expert on
So,
this one. Yeah.
okay, sorry. So this is one of my favorite episodes of all time. Every time I do a watch through this show, I watch this like at least three extra times because the message at the end is really good. If I can remember the quote, it's basically, did we it touches on, did God create us, or did we create God? And in doing so, did we create God through media, shit like that? And it's actually really, he only touches on that a little bit, but I'm trying to remember the rest of the quote because I just watched it and it's just escaping me right now. Um, Oh, he talks about how media controls people. How and it blows my mind. I love this at the end of the episode where he talks like the main villain, when I say he talks about how you can convince anyone of anything, which is at the time they were using CRT TVs. So he references the little dots, the red, green, and blue dots on the TV. You can get anyone to believe anything and do anything for that reason just by controlling dots on a screen. I mean, everything you see is artificial, And so at the time he was talking about, TV controls people and gets them to do things, but you can just replace the only, like, you can make that speech work perfectly for now. Just replace it with the internet or TikTok or YouTube. It can make you believe in fantastical things and do just absolutely ridiculous
The
things for
Tide
those
Pod
reasons.
Challenge.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a famous quote by Carl Sagan that you can pull up called I have a can't talk. I have a foreboding. Sorry, my lips are sticking together there. Eh. It's really good. There is a typo, I think, in here somewhere that I've noticed because it says of an American. Yeah, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be America. But definitely, like, if you look at the first part and, he talks about,
And how
I mean,
old
I guess more on
is
topic is the second part, but the first part sets the context for it. But yeah, look at how we 30-second sound bites down to 10 seconds. What is that? That's TikTok.
yeah, I was
And
gonna say,
he,
how old is this quote too, right?
1996
96. Yeah.
is one of my favorite books of all time,
There's a
The
there's
Demon
a
Hunted
Francis
World.
Ford Coppola quote from 79 maybe. I think it was when they were shooting Apocalypse Now, so whenever that would have been. And that he was like
Oh, yeah.
the future, they're like, "Well, who's
Love
going
that
to,
movie.
when you're gone or whatever, who's going to be the next big thing?" And he's like, "It's not going to be somebody like me. It's going to be like some kid, with their parents' camera, and that's who's going to make the next great thing." And it's like, boom, that is what's
Yeah.
happening on the internet,
And to me, it's both a blessing and a curse. I mean, you're seeing things like podcasts like this that you wouldn't get any other way. But at the same time, I was talking to my uncle and my dad about this earlier, where you can go like on a Japanese subway, make a complete fool of yourself, and then boom, millions of followers, and then you have like social credit. You have
A Hawk
backing
Ball
now.
girl or some, these people who get internet
Yeah,
fame
Hawk
from
to a girl.
one thing, and she obviously blew
Yeah,
it, but the world gave her that opportunity from that little 5-second clip. Yeah.
exactly. And it's like that's the next big thing is someone talking about you know what I mean?
What's
Like,
Andy Warhol? In the future, everyone will be anonymous for 15 minutes. Not everybody's gonna be famous for 15. You get your 15 minutes of fame. He's like, no, everybody's gonna be anonymous for 15 minutes because we're sick of seeing
that is absolutely true.
everybody everywhere all the time. And it's funny because I've thought about this because we've kind of criticized, mind control media and this and that. I'm like, here we are on social media talking about topics but I feel like this people, I mean, I would think people know that this is an open forum. It's different when it's like the giants of media. It's like that, we are the news, we are the word. And that's to me, that's what's different that
Yeah.
people know that this is a different format than the way you get information from what you consider like a giant reputable source. We're just a couple of dudes talking here.
Yeah, and see, science is built on that. That's why the whole COVID thing just really upset me is even Carl Sagan, I forget which scientist he was talking about. I saved the quote to use at the end of one of my videos, but I forget who specifically he was talking about. But he said the worst part wasn't that the scientist's ideas were wrong. It's that other scientists censored him and didn't allow him to debate his ideas.
Exactly. Yeah. And
And
now
so,
all that's passed. Now they're
yeah,
like, we can start to talk about it, but like, no, I remember 2021, and you guys
yeah,
weren't you guys weren't talking about it like that back then.
and I predicted that at the time. I'm gonna watch. They're gonna censor everything, and then this actually happened sooner than I predicted, where people are able to talk about it. But I said, watch in 10 years, we're gonna have documentaries on Netflix about it and how bad and wrong it was. You know, Same way with any, a lot of other historical events, especially like the
Plastic is
witch
going to
hunts
be
and
our
stuff.
our generation's lead and asbestos probably. Like, you guys used to have
Oh, for
plastic in
sure.
everything? Are you serious? You guys are crazy.
Your job is removing asbestos. What do you mean? I put it in.
Let me see if I
I
can
love the
find this
title of that
picture.
book, by the way. The demon was it the demon haunted
Demon
world?
Haunted World. Science is a candle in the dark. Yeah,
Wow, it's so profound.
it
And
is.
unfortunately, people like Carl Sagan. Carl Sagan. I used to make fun of Carl Sagan, but he was an honest broker. He was a
Yeah.
real person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he was looking for the truth, and he had a lot of great insights. Honestly,
Oh, he really
um,
did.
he really was kind of ahead of the curve,
Yeah.
and
I
this is
saw.
why they censored him.
Yeah.
You know
I
what Albert
mean, do you
Einstein
hear
said about
anything
that?
about him anymore?
No,
Oh, I'm
he
sorry. I was
hardly ever
talking
did.
over you. I'm sorry. What were you saying though before I
I was
talked
going
over
to
you?
say
I'm
about
sorry.
Einstein. He said, "Great spirits have often met with violent opposition from mediocre minds."
Yeah.
Oh
Wow.
yeah. One of my favorite channels on YouTube has adopted the quote that he's using at the end of all of his videos. And I like adopted it yesterday. Oddly enough, that's why I bring it up. It's just perfect timing. Is loud lies will die to quiet truths if you try hard
Mm,
enough, at least.
I
You
love
know,
that.
Yeah.
That's good.
yeah, it's very wise.
That's
Like
powerful.
that sounds like something Sagan would say. You know.
Well, Matthias Desmet, who wrote a book on mass formation psychosis, he talks about how you must continue to speak the truth, even at risk of losing your life, because if you speak the truth long enough, it will destroy the mass formation. Eventually, the mass formation will crumble and fall apart as long as enough people, a few people, continue speaking the truth.
Yeah, you don't need to defend the truth. The truth is just there, you know. But with a lie, it's built on a unstable foundation, which
Yes.
is the lie, and so you
Yep.
have to defend it because even the slightest breeze of truth will blow it over, you
Yeah, it's a
know.
great point. It's a great point. Yeah, and of course, unfortunately, millions of people can lose their lives over those lies until
Oh,
enough
for
people
sure.
wake up and say, what are we doing? So
And that's usually what it takes. I mean, Carl Sagan also has another quote that I use as the theme song for my YouTube channel. Just had AI do it for me, but I have no access to a band, so but basically it states that once we've been bamboozled, we're no longer interested in finding the truth. We're just interested in maintaining that bamboozle.
yeah,
You know, like
that's
at
a
one point,
true statement.
it is so true, and that's why that's the theme song to my YouTube channel. Even though it really has nothing to do with fictional airplanes, my goal with my YouTube channel is to subtly, which I feel like it is being lost on both sides of the political spectrum, where I find myself in the middle, um, where the subtlety is lost, and you want to, instead of cramming your ideas down someone's throat, you first just kind of want to introduce them to the idea and let them come to their own conclusion. And if you do want to nudge them in a certain direction, you do that more subtly. And that actually ties into why I like stories so much. Is stories are a way for us to communicate, to transfer ideas, morals, and preserve our culture, our cultural heritage and everything for generations, right? But when you lose the art of storytelling, when you lose the ability to tell these stories, you where we find ourselves now. Like it's amazing. I've just finished watching King of the Hill through with my wife, and it is amazing the moral lessons that are taught in that show are
That's
seen
Mike
as
Judge,
completely
right?
abs
Mike
yeah, Mike
Judge.
Judge, I love him.
Yeah.
Like absolute the morals in that show are seen as absurd by today's standards and like
Yeah.
hateful. And it's like
Yeah.
these are just normal values that our culture took for granted.
Yep.
And now we're not perpetuating these messages anymore. But that's what those stories were meant to do, was
Well, those
meant to,
messages and those standards and those morals are coming back.
they are
Thank
in a big
God.
way,
Yeah.
in a big way,
Thank
because,
God.
that's how a tsunami works, is the sea has to
Yeah.
recede first,
Yep.
and then the deluge happens,
That's true. Hmm.
So wait, so
So,
berating people and trying to humiliate them is not a good way to get them to like
What?
ideas?
Now
I
you
mean, I
tell
gotta
me.
gotta take notes. Oh God. Yeah.
like,
Because that's what's it's like that's what everything's like a it's like hyping up for like some football, the this side versus the this side. They come down. I'm like, dude, you guys pass legislation. It's not just chill out, just do your job. Like stop trying to
I know,
try
like,
to make this into the WWE or whatever. Like
exactly. I was watching something where someone was trying to stay out of not be, they're trying not to be political with their jokes, but they're like, okay, I'll let this one slip in, but it's still kind of neutral. And he's like, this is like saying that I forget what he was referencing, but he's saying like, this is like saying the president is an idiot that really has no idea what he's doing, no matter who he is. Oh, wait.
What was that
And my
stupid
dad working
movie?
in government instilled that in me. So
what was that movie where everybody was dumbed down? Well, I think it was Steve Carell.
Idiocracy.
Idiocracy.
Idiocracy is
What a
so
great
good.
movie. I mean, because
That is
that's
one of my-
kind of where we
Basically a
were headed. Yeah.
documentary. Yeah.
Yeah.
The joke for that movie is it was a comedy that became a documentary.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
I've heard that passed around a ton, and it
It's
is
so true.
absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And
It
what
was
was
like,
the
dude,
deal
this is
that
spot on.
I forget if it was, like they make fun of Costco and like they make fun of a lot of things by name. I guess like Mountain Dew. Uh
Mountain Dew.
and
Gatorade is what kills the plants.
yeah,
And that's
yeah. It's
all
got
I was
electrolytes.
thinking
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is
during
funny that
COVID.
when I forget how he tried to do this, but when they got wind of like what was in this movie, everybody pulled the promotions, the Fandango, whatever that website is. They didn't even
Yeah.
list it as Idiocracy. It just said like new Mike Judge movie or something. They really tried to get people not to. They're like, well, I'm not putting any money into this project that makes fun of us. And because they tried to suppress it, Mike used it to hype it up more, and now it's a cult
Blew it
The
classic.
up.
Streisand
Like,
effect.
thank you
Yeah.
for trying to make sure nobody watched it because now
Yeah.
everybody has seen it. So
Yeah.
I love when
That
things
a
like that backfire.
similar kind of thing happened with Grand Theft Auto, for example.
Hmm.
So in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, there was this line with when you make a game, there's a ton of just dead code, less leftover stuff, just junk that's left in the game. And if you're smart enough, you can dig into that code and sometimes reactivate it and play with it.
Hmm.
And so there was this now give it the now before I get totally into this, I should probably set the stage. So the context is this is during the big moral panic of the 80s and 90s where, we had the Tom Hanks movie, I'm going to jump off the Twin Towers because D&D told me to. Right?
Oh,
So,
what's his name versus the volcano?
yeah, oh shit. I know what you're talking about, man. My brain is failing me.
Yeah.
But where was I going? Anyway, so that's the stage, is the moral panic and everything. Video games are bad, all that. They're causing crime, even though that's been disproven a million times. Um, so in GTA, a crime simulator game, I'd say it's more of a life simulator with like a crime tinge to it, but it's really more of a life simulator. But there's this leftover bit of code where you have sex with your girlfriend, and it is really just slapping two Barbie dolls together, basically, is what it looks like.
Hmm.
Because it's a game from like 2002. The graphics aren't great. And I mean, and it's just goofy, right? It's absolutely harmless. You don't see anything. But this caused such an uproar when someone found it in the game and reactivated it and made it available to download online. And for context, it was called the hot coffee mod because apparently that was what it was called in the code, was hot coffee. For some reason, that was just the code. Whatever. And so Leisure Shoot Larry, yes, that was part of all this. And
I'm
then
like I had this on like a floppy disk or something. Yeah, this was
was it Nightcrawler, Night Stalker? What was that? It was a game that was all just FMV video. That was another thing that was really controversial at the time, most violent video game ever. But anyway, with GTA, so Congress got involved and tried to censor GTA.
Oh man.
They're like, oh, this game is horrible. We don't want this out in our kids to play this. And then Hillary Clinton actually got involved and was whining about this hot coffee mod, saying it was actually in the game when it really wasn't. You had to download a mod for it, right? And so actually in Grand Theft Auto 4, there's a statue of Hillary Clinton holding a cup of hot coffee that's supposed to be the Statue of Liberty
Nice.
as basically an F you middle finger, we won. You didn't take our game away. And that whole controversy had the Streisand effect. Oh, GTA is no this big taboo game your parents don't want you playing,
Yep.
you know. And so it helped sell the game.
I mean, that was
That
like
was a
Nancy
really
Reagan in the
roundabout way of
80s
getting
with
there.
everything. Like the reason why I have like the explicit content warning on
Yep.
and everything now. And the Judas Priest the murder or suicide, whatever it was, and they're like, well, they listened to Judas Priest, it's their fault. I mean, it's the same like blame the Matrix,
Helter
blame
Skelter.
Manson. And I'm like, oh cool. Like how many billion like a billion people saw it and one person did something bad. And you're gonna say the movie is what caused them to do it. I don't think so. Because I listened to
Oh yeah, I forget which shooting it was recently, but there was a school shooting where they blamed Fortnite.
uh,
Like, dude,
it's like,
it's
nah,
a
dude.
game where you play as Bugs Bunny. What are you talking about?
Like, like how many people play Fortnite, you know?
Yeah,
And it's like there was one
millions. Yeah,
650
I was gonna
million
say.
registered users. So I'm like, wow, yeah, that must be a lot of people that are. Oh, it was one. It was one out of what's that statistically? It's like nothing.
Well,
Yep, and that's actually
in the state of Oregon, somebody was pumping their own gas, and they lit a match and threw it down,
Oh no.
and
Oh,
they banned self-service for 25 or 30 years because of that one person. So when everybody, when people have an agenda to do something, all it takes is one. That's all it ever takes.
yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I joke all the time. Like there are so many laws that we find stupid, but it's like I know there's a lot of laws that are passed out of malice, but then a lot of them are just like someone screwed up somewhere so bad that there had to be a rule about it when there didn't really need to be a rule about it.
And I know we're almost out of time, but you kind of bring up an interesting point, right? Of like, well, I'm gonna say mind control. It's not. I more mean just cultural influence, but that, it only takes that, one person ruins it for everybody. So what did we have
Yep.
in society before that one person kept chipping? What have we lost from the one person who ruined it for everybody, right? How many of those
Hmm.
instances have chipped
Exactly.
away and eroded at what we could have,
Well,
and now we all
look
live
at
in this
9/11, right?
smaller container, right? Yeah.
Like you can't kiss your loved one goodbye at the airport anymore. You can't have that, big dramatic scene anymore because a handful of idiots broke the rule one time, you know? Like,
I mean,
well,
airports have
now
been more lax for me lately, but I mean, I haven't been up in New York. I haven't flown out of LaGuardia or anything, but no, I
Well,
mean,
I
that definitely
remember when you
changed.
couldn't joke about things in an
No, yeah,
airport.
that was a
yeah,
for a long time. I was like, you better
No
not.
jokes.
Yo, that song is the bomb. They're like, boom,
Yeah,
he said bomb.
yeah,
exactly.
He
get
said
off the
bomb. Get
plane.
him out. Get him out.
Get him out of here. I remember my parents were always like, because you can tell I talk a lot. And my parents were like, just shut up. I know you ramble. Just don't say anything.
Yeah. I mean, I have
But
dark
yeah,
humor. I'm trying to stop myself half the time too, but
yeah. But this has been fun. I know we're almost out of time, but this has been really fun. I've been looking for a group of guys like you for ages, man. So if you
We've
ever want to
been
have me
looking
back
for a group
on,
of guys like us for ages.
I'm still trying
well,
to find myself.
yeah,
Yes.
oh, dude, isn't that relatable?
Yeah.
But yeah, if
But
you
yeah, like
ever want to have me,
we kind of came in with a goal to talk about a certain topic, but as always,
we went
I like when
everywhere.
we go
But
where it goes because I feel like this is how you get to the real topics, right? It's scripted, structured, whatever. It's good to have, but it's good to go with the flow because I never would have thought we'd talk about half the stuff we talked about today, and I'm glad we did. It's awesome.
Yep.
yeah, and I'm glad we went on as long as we did. I wasn't expecting this to go on so long, so I'm happy. I'm happy.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess some final thoughts,
Yeah,
if that's cool.
yeah. Let's wrap it up. Go for it.
So again, just reminding everyone, I'm Runway 25 Productions. I mainly do just vehicle lore on my channel right now. I am thinking about branching into some other things, but for now, just vehicle lore.
From beneath the sands of Egypt to miles under barrier, ice walls of Antarctica, truth is being revealed. Giant technological structures discovered beneath Giza's Great Pyramid, the most important archaeological discovery of all time. This research delves into the groundbreaking discovery of massive underground structures beneath the Great Pyramid of Giza, uncovering a hidden history that challenges mainstream archaeology. These deep formations, extending over 600 meters into the bedrock and connecting to structures nearly 2 kilometers below, suggest that ancient civilizations possessed engineering capabilities far beyond what has been traditionally acknowledged. The book examines the possibility that these structures predate dynastic Egypt and may be remnants of a pre-flood world, aligning with biblical and historical accounts of lost knowledge, forgotten civilizations, and advanced construction techniques. Drawing from both ancient texts and modern technology, this book explores the implications of these findings in relation to the Emerald Tablets, the Halls of Amenti, and biblical references to antediluvian civilizations such as those mentioned in Genesis and the Book of Enoch. Could these subterranean structures be remnants of a lost world that was destroyed in the Great Flood? Were they built by a civilization with knowledge passed down from divine or even fallen entities? Hidden Foundations of Ancient Civilization considers the role of the Nephilim, Watchers, and other mysterious figures from ancient traditions, as well as the possibility that these underground chambers were used for spiritual, scientific, or even interdimensional purposes. You have to read Giant Technological Structures Discovered Beneath Giza's Great Pyramid, the most important archaeological discovery of all time. Available now at www.escapeyourmindsprison.com or on Amazon Kindle.